Witness two outcasts whose digital creation completely upended their mundane existence. A living goddess emerged. Back then, we truly believed technology could heal any teenage heart. That film captured the peak of 80s adolescent dreams in a bottle. Those lovable losers were brought to life by the legendary Michael Hall Ilan Mitchell-Smith. They summoned the breathtaking LeBrock, followed by a chaotic horde of desert bikers. Suddenly, a massive weapon pierced their floorboards. Let us uncover 15 hidden stories today. We are revisiting the on-set madness and stunts that nearly turned comedy into tragedy. Please hit that support button to help us keep these celluloid memories alive. Tell us below if you crave more deep dives into the movies of our youth. Let us begin our journey back in time with entry number 15. On-set behavior was total mayhem. A young Robert Downey was a wild force of nature. He and his partner in crime were not just acting, they lived as bullies. Witness this moment. See for yourselves. Rumors lingered about the duo making a mess in the lead's trailer. When the director asked, the future superstar just gave a crooked grin and lied. Decades later, he confessed on the radio that the incident happened elsewhere on set. His accomplice eventually confirmed they were simply having the time of their lives, causing trouble. That friendship remained solid, lasting through years of Hollywood highs and lows. Their on-screen energy worked because they were truly inseparable friends behind the scenes. That famous frozen drink gesture was never planned, it was pure spontaneous mischief. It showed an early spark of the improvisational genius that would define a superhero. Word on the street is a big discount event is happening at the local shop. He was constantly finding ways to make his character feel more like a real person. That same creative instinct later turned a snack-loving billionaire into a global icon. It is those tiny unscripted touches that turn a simple movie into a timeless classic. Soon, every dark secret will be revealed. Want a berry? It is funny how they feared you. The set was a playground for disaster. One star's ill-timed gas became a legendary mistake. That single laugh ruined a pyrotechnic shot, wasting $100,000 of studio cash. The most expensive effect in the whole movie was actually just an adolescent stomachache. It was a perfect snapshot of young stars treating a major film like summer camp. Between the trailer pranks and the costly bodily functions, it is a miracle they finished. Coming in at number 14, the leading lady who almost was. Finding the perfect woman proved difficult. The first choice left after only 2 days. Meanwhile, the true star was enjoying wine and sunshine in France with a musician. When the studio called, she initially preferred her vacation to the hard work of filming. The director tested other future stars like Moore and Wright during those frantic weeks. Famous names auditioned with a guy who ended up as an extra in the background. With the project in trouble, the studio begged their first choice to name her price. Within hours, she was flying to the Windy City to save the production. Her first day involved that iconic bathroom scene wearing someone else's altered clothes. That lucky break turned her into a household name for a generation of moviegoers. The actress who missed out was immediately discovered for another classic ensemble drama. That shift launched a career leading to the biggest hits of the 90s. In the end, everyone found their perfect role and a place in film history. Moving to number 13, the small-screen version that caught everyone off guard. Imagine a bedroom project turning into 5 years of cozy weekend night memories. The show occupied a strange identity, neither a true sequel nor a fresh start. It existed in a playful limbo, frequently nodding toward its cinematic big brother. Eventually, a lead character admitted his creation was inspired by a famous filmmaker. This soft transition introduced Vanessa Angel as our new digital dream lady. She evolved into a cybernetic genie, often questioning the desires of those boys. Her presence served as a sharp critique of a shallow music video culture. From school bullies to bad hair, she solved every crisis with magic. The adventures ranged from cosmic journeys to simple, heartfelt life lessons. Early digital effects captured that nostalgic Windows 95 screensaver aesthetic. Even a perfect virtual woman had a relatable weakness for premium ice cream. Michael Menasseri and John Mallory Asher shared an authentic off-screen connection. That genuine brotherhood gave the supernatural comedy its lasting nostalgic heart. Remember, the warning tampering with time carries heavy, lasting consequences. Consider the alternate history where Seth Green almost landed that lead role. He eventually guest-starred while Tergesen reimagined the iconic grumpy sibling. This version traded pure terror for the energy of a frustrated buzzkill. A military school grad, he avoided service to escape unmotivated peers. Memory wipes failed once he developed a funny natural resistance to magic. Surprisingly, the original director had no hand in this televised reimagining. The writers relied on self-aware, quirky humor to keep the magic alive. Skipping to the best parts, does every arrival require such an explosion? Excuse the interruption, but let us appreciate Vanessa Angel's impact. That role made her a 90s icon, nearly changing television history forever. She was the original choice for a warrior princess before falling ill. Lucy Lawless stepped in, and the rest is legendary sword-swinging lore. Against the odds, it lasted 88 chapters with a dedicated following. Some prefer this version, though the movie remains the most quoted. The journey finished abruptly in 1997, leaving 6 stories forgotten. They finally aired on cable deep in the show's monster-filled era. A bold teenage fantasy eventually matured into a gentle, family-friendly staple. It proved that even cult legends can be rewired for new audiences. That specific age rating was brand new back in 1985. Fans still argue whether the war film or the coming-of-age story was first. One film simply took a bit longer to reach the local multiplex. Universal and the creators tested the limits of this new category. They included adult themes and language that surprised many unsuspecting parents. Bill Paxton's improvised grotesque creature remains a masterclass in practical effects. It walked the line between childhood wonder and more mature, edgy humor. That thought perfectly mirrors the sentiment I was just having. So, tell me, what does a man like Al do for work? Outcry over darker family films birthed this famous middle ground rating. This production defined that blurry, daring edge of 80s cinema. It became a thrilling, slightly dangerous rite of passage for every teenager. Home video rentals only brought the surprise into more unsuspecting living rooms. 80s humor titans. Loyalty-guided haul. Deep, creative kinship. Strange nerd sorcery. Heroic dork ascension. Griswolds marched onward. Changing sibling faces. Oblivious parental laughs. Better days past. Heavy vacation costs. Brat Pack membership. Outgrowing small roles. Cult classic crown. Fantasy beats travel. Failures birthed beauty. Apple's expensive blunder. Sinking tech giants. Secret namesakes reveal. Advanced digital solitude. Binary human fusion. Beautiful noble failure. Mac's forgotten pioneer. Future's groundwork set. Teens digital irony. Hormonal fantasy software. Screen legend status. Namesakes doomed legacy. Shared cinematic worlds. Early movie universes. Suburban youth pain. Hometown origins found. Universal suburban dreams. Borrowed visual memories. Familiar school halls. Empty campuses. Absolute creative liberty. Soaked filmmaking delight. Hidden location clues. Painted water towers. Recurring facial motifs. Knowing the player. Personality over logic. Atmosphere trumps rules. Hugh's acting tribe. Perfectly messy history. That legendary filmmaker crafted a teenage dreamscape using a single locked campus and pure suburban rebellion. Entry 8 brings us a frantic melody born from a sudden phone call to a visionary composer. The musician initially suspected a practical joke, yet a rhythm haunted him before he reached his front door. Despite the spark, he felt a deep distaste for the result, as his group usually thrived on shadows. This project felt like a sugary departure from their gritty roots, representing a strange pivot in their career. Then came the filming of the video, where he usually maintained total control, but exhaustion left him sidelined. Buried in various tasks, he arrived at the studio as a mere spectator rather than the creative architect. Relinquishing that authority carried a heavy price once he witnessed the garish, chaotic spectacle they had crafted. He eventually slammed the neon mess as commercial garbage, a sentiment echoed by 2 famous cartoon slackers. That mockery cemented his embarrassment, leaving us wondering why such a talent was kept from the pop charts. Playing those notes live became a chore he couldn't stomach, leading him to scrub the track entirely. He dismissed it as a fleeting gimmick, yet the flick itself held its own secrets regarding the audio. Depending on where you watch the film, the soundtrack underwent a bizarre transformation due to legal squabbles. In certain versions, that quirky anthem even bumped a legendary classic from the speakers during key moments. This meant the theater experience differed wildly from the living room version, though the composer felt regret. While the artist sought to distance himself, a whole generation embraced the tune as a foundational memory. It climbed the charts and eventually anchored the television spin-off, living far longer than anyone ever intended. If you are enjoying this stroll through 1985, please show some love by hitting the like button. Pass this along to a buddy who definitely attempted to power up electronics with car batteries. Your engagement keeps the memories alive. At 7, we look at a father's revolting breakfast advice. Remember that stomach-churning cure for a rough morning? Surprisingly, those words never existed in the original script. Those lines were a gift from the late Bill Paxton's own upbringing in the heart of Texas. His father had a particular knack for signaling that he knew exactly what the boys were doing. Rather than a lecture, he would offer a nauseatingly oily meal served in a filthy container. It was a brilliant mix of mockery and psychological warfare that the actor insisted on filming. The director leaned into that spontaneity, creating a moment of cinematic aggression that felt uncomfortably authentic. That raw honesty was the secret sauce for a man who could make any minor role legendary. Whether fighting space monsters or chasing storms, he turned a familial joke into an iconic 80s moment. A simple kitchen ribbing became an iconic cultural touchstone, but our next entry reveals a hidden dance talent. Long before he was manifesting perfection on a computer, Ilan Mitchell-Smith was a dedicated student of ballet. Raised in the city that never sleeps, he maintained his focus even after moving to a quiet town. By age 11, he was grinding through rigorous rehearsals and training with a world-class institution. Rumors even suggest he earned his place at a prestigious academy, proving his commitment was the real deal. A professional stage career seemed certain until the bright lights of cinema redirected his path. A famous filmmaker sent scouts to the dance studio seeking a young man with discipline and presence. They didn't need a performer, just a kid who could carry himself with poise in front of a lens. He secured a role portraying a younger version of a major star in 1983, sparking a career. Just 24 months later, he was trading his slippers for a headband and navigating teenage chaos. After stepping away from the spotlight, he earned a doctorate and now guides students through classic literature. He specializes in tales of ancient warriors who certainly didn't need electronics to solve their problems. From the dance floor to the movie screen to the university hall, his path remains truly fascinating. At entry 5, we see a post-apocalyptic warrior invading the suburbs for no logical reason. In the middle of a typical teenage bash, Vernon Wells bursts through a window looking like a wasteland survivor. With a distinctive hairstyle and heavy leather, he was a dead ringer for a certain Australian villain. It was a bold move that narrowly avoided a lawsuit, but there was a deeper connection for the performer. He debuted stateside not in some harsh desert epic, but something far more colorful. It was a strange beginning for a legend. Instead, he terrified local youngsters near the Windy City in a bright 80s haze. That shocking start changed everything for him. The studio head was so impressed he immediately offered him that famous soldier role. It was a career-defining moment of pure luck. Behind the scenes, he only joined the cast because the first choice was fired instantly. Tiny miracles often shape Hollywood history. That explains his journey from a silly comedy to facing off against the world's biggest star. It makes you miss those wild days. The cast also included a man famous for his haunting role in desert horror films. It was a beautiful collection of strange faces. Nothing screams 80s like a masked killer showing up at a high school party. Those crossovers felt like magic back then. Only that era could blend wasteland villains with teenage fantasies so perfectly. It was a time of pure cinematic wonder. Every weird world collided in one living room during that fourth crazy moment. The sight of it remains etched in memory. A nuclear weapon suddenly appeared in a bedroom without any digital help at all. It looked like a terrifying piece of furniture. Artisans used old-school tricks to send that projectile through the roof of the house. It was a masterclass in handmade terror. The young leads caused the disaster by failing to connect their equipment properly. A simple mistake led to absolute chaos. The machine ignored their dreams of romance and chose a deadly weapon instead. It was a digital twist no one expected. They missed a crucial step and a warhead appeared out of thin air. Builders had to create a physical version for filming. Using broken walls and reversed shots, they lowered the prop slowly into the scene. Every detail was crafted with care. Running the film backward made it look as though it burst through the floor. Such simple ideas often create the best thrills. The technical crew found it exhausting, but the final shot captured that whimsical spirit. It was a beautiful kind of madness. Rumors about a life-sized rocket are probably just tall tales from the set. Reality was likely much safer and more modest. The team used a small model that looked incredibly authentic on the big screen. It made the impossible feel entirely real. A funny story briefly turned into a global crisis before magic mended the walls. The same camera trick saved the house. Flipping the film fixed the damage in an age of tech and teenage lust. It was a decade of endless creative possibilities. Bombs and hormones made for a strange mix during that third expensive puddle catastrophe. It was a costly lesson for everyone. Seeing the bully turn into a gassy, burping mound of slime was unforgettable. He certainly got what he deserved in the end. The situation grew tense as that creature became a massive financial burden. It cost more than anyone could have guessed. The plan involved the actor hiding inside a heavy, uncomfortable rubber shell. It seemed like a good idea at first. Once inside the tight space, fear took over and he had to escape. The production ground to a very sudden halt. The crew was left with a pricey costume and no one to wear it. They had to think fast to save the day. 2 smaller actors, including a veteran of distant space wars, stepped in. They were the unsung heroes of the set. They brought the creature to life from within, but the cost was enormous. It was a desperate move to finish filming. Tens of thousands of dollars were spent on a relatively small total bankroll. Slime has never been quite so expensive. The director was already stressed while dreaming of a much deeper, more serious story. Tension was rising behind the cameras. That disaster didn't help yet that Muddy Monster is still a fan favorite. Sometimes the hardest days create the best art. Under all that latex, the actor still managed to project a sense of arrogance. He played the part with wonderful disdain. It remains a peak moment of cinematic strangeness from a legendary career. Those early years were truly a special time. He went on to battle space monsters and massive storms with immense charm. He became a true icon of the screen. He briefly lived as a remorseful puddle during a second major career trade-off. It was the price he paid for freedom. The filmmaker gambled his entire soul on his masterpiece at a major studio. He was desperate to tell his own story. This project was merely a tool he wrote during a sleepless, busy night. It was a means to a much bigger dream. His true passion had been waiting on a shelf for several long years. The script was just looking for a chance. Studio heads weren't interested in a raw look at youthful identity and marriage. They wanted something they could sell easily. Looking back, the absurdity of those early struggles feels almost surreal now. It was a world of strange compromises. Executives searched for a product they could pitch to the masses without worry. They needed a hit that felt safe. They wanted flashy lights and special sights instead of deep emotional conversations. It was a business decision above all else. A pact was made to deliver a silly adventure in exchange for a soul. It was a deal that changed movies forever. Fresh off his first big win, he penned the script in a lightning-fast sprint. His creative fire was burning so bright. Imagine a filmmaker hunkered down for 48 hours, fueled by nothing but raw inspiration and coffee. That lightning-fast pace defined his entire creative soul during those golden years. Fingers danced across the keys with a frantic energy, discovering the narrative path only as the paper scrolled upward. The plot didn't just form, it practically erupted onto the page. Planning was an afterthought replaced by a raw instinct he affectionately labeled as finding the gold. This wasn't some fluke of luck either. Think about legendary adventures crafted in 7 sunrises or domestic comedies finished before the weekend was over. Looking back at his schedule reveals a truly staggering rhythm. After wrapping that iconic Saturday detention in early 1984, he jumped straight into his next sci-fi experiment. The cameras never seemed to stop rolling for him. Even as he was editing his masterpiece, the actors on his new set noticed his mind was often miles away. It felt like he was living in two different worlds at once. The drive to keep creating was relentless, and his lead star often saw him jotting down secret ideas between takes. Was he already dreaming of the next big thing? Those scraps of paper held the seeds of future classics or final touches on his current work in progress. His brain was a factory that never closed for the night. There's a certain charm in that frantic energy that you just can't manufacture in a boardroom. It wasn't some calculated studio project built by committee. The whole movie plays like a wild late-night session among friends which perfectly mirrors its origins. It all started with a digital goddess manifesting in a suburban bedroom. Her arrival was sparked by his desire to trap a group of misfits in a library. Paradoxically, both these vastly different tales graced the silver screen in 1985. These stories eventually defined a generation's cinema, arriving just months apart within that single golden year. From a cold February premiere to a scorching August debut, the impact was massive. It was a whirlwind output from a man operating on a completely different frequency than everyone else. One project served the gatekeepers while the other served his own soul. He needed a creative outlet just to maintain his grip on reality during the chaos. Surprisingly, the origins of this tech fantasy go back to the printed page. The title wasn't pulled from thin air but borrowed from a legendary publication from the 1950s. Those vintage magazines were filled with tales of the strange and unusual. Those old pages specialized in grim lessons and eerie futures, though the film took a much lighter path. He captured the spirit of the source without copying a single panel. Imagine having the power to craft your own perfect companion just by tapping a few keys. It was the ultimate adolescent wish fulfillment fantasy brought to life. Between 1950 and 1953, those comics captured the imagination before a savvy producer snatched up the branding. It was a classic piece of media history waiting for a rebirth. Securing that entire library of stories paved the way for the movie's name. Deep in the archives, one particular tale from 1951 stands out. That specific issue featured a story about a lonely soul building a spouse from high-tech parts. It's easy to see where the initial spark of inspiration flickered.